What's up, everybody? TGK here on TGK TV, and I just want to give you a quick review and basically my personal thoughts on the Iron Claw movie. Let's get to it. All right, so let's talk about the Iron Claw. If you don't know, you will know now. I'm a local here in Dallas. Did I grow up watching the Von Erichs? Absolutely not. But I do know a lot about them. I'm a big time wrestling fan, as you could tell. Stone Cold Die Hard. We could talk about other wrestlers that I love, right? But you know, as I grew up and fell in love with wrestling, and then I've done my backtrack and research history and understood, you know, the history of wrestling, and specifically here in Dallas with the Sportatorium and all that good stuff. You come to find out of the Von Erich family, right? And the Von Erich family around here in Dallas, there's so many stories that I've heard. There's so much like folklore about them as well. Like when you watch the highlight clips from the Sportatorium, you're just like, what the hell? This used to exist here? That's what I always used to say. Like, damn, I wish I was able to just go there and kind of feel that atmosphere. So I went into this movie knowing a bit about the backstory. I actually do know a bit about it. Do I know everything in detail? No, because you see so many documentaries, you can only retain so much information, right? But I know enough to know enough going into this movie. I would say it helped knowing something about the Von Erichs before you go into this movie. Do they do a good job of like explaining like their backstory and all that stuff? I don't think they go into details. They do a decent job showing you things that if you knew prior going into the movie, you'd understand it. But if you didn't, I could see where you could be a little bit confused if you didn't know enough. But also because I knew enough, I'm not sure. But I did go with a friend that has absolutely no idea of the Von Erich family. And she had a blast watching this movie. She thought it was an amazing movie. So maybe they do a good job, right? So I would have to ask her. But she had a great time watching the movie. I had a great time watching the movie. So not to be critical about it, I guess they did a good job. However, there is some things that wasn't, if you knew enough, you could be like, this wasn't like the accurate depiction of this character or that character. I totally get it. I think if you go into the movie, you need to go into the movie completely like not expecting perfection, right? Don't expect perfection. Don't expect anything going into this movie. You should have like just an open mind going into this movie and just accept it as it is, as it comes to you, because I think it is a really great movie. I really do. I think Zac Efron, obviously he doesn't look anything like Kevin, right? Does he? Absolutely not. But did he do a great job kind of capturing how Kevin kind of carried himself and how he was the guy that cared. I mean, they all cared about each other and their brothers. All the brothers cared for each other, but it always seemed like Kevin was like the one that was just the odd one left out, unfortunately, right? It's a very tragic story of the Von Erich family. Let's get to the movie more specifically. Fritz Von Erich. Whoever cast that man, I don't know who he is. Let me see who he is. He is Holt McCallany, whatever. Great cast. I thought that was actually Fritz. I thought Fritz, the Fritz Von Erich cast was knocked out the park. I mean, you go back and look at highlights and old footage of Fritz Von Erich wrestling or even just talking, and then you see him in this movie, you're like, what? Like it was amazing. I was beside myself a little bit. Kevin Von Erich with Zac Efron, obviously they didn't look alike, but did Zac, you could tell Zac Efron busted his ass in that gym to look as the way he looked. He looked straight up like a wrestler. I think he knocked it out the park from his acting. There was a specific part where Carrie, obviously if you know the story, Carrie does what he did to end his life, right? And I would have liked to see a little bit more emotion there, because it was more anger, but then I needed to understand that side of it as well. Also, while I'm on the subject, there's a lot of like mental health issues that was going on into the Von Erich family story. I think, you know, the way they presented it in the movie, the dad wasn't there. He was very demanding. He would kind of categorize the brothers based on their performance, who was the favorite. That's kind of tough, right? And then the mom didn't seem available. So and I think back in the 80s and 70s, that was just kind of the way you had to be grown up. And obviously it's not the healthiest, but you kind of look at these things, and from a mental health perspective, you're wondering like, damn, what if they just had a better household in a way, or and we don't know if all of that is true, but you could kind of see, right? It's based on a true story, right? And I think, Kevin Von Erich had a decent hand in the film, and so I'm pretty sure he approved all of that. And he kind of like peeled behind the curtain for us to see how it was growing up, and it just didn't seem like the parents were heavily involved into like their mental health as well. And I don't think it was such a thing that was spoken about back then, right? You had to be tough. You had to, if you suffered and you stuck through it, then that's what made you tough, right? But the movie, let's talk about David Von Erich, right? David, he could speak on a mic. He was the guy that had the most potential from a superstar, right? And he showed it in here, from speaking on the mic, tall as hell, all the abilities, right? And I think they did a decent job there. Where Carrie, I thought Carrie, I needed to stop this edit because I forgot to mention one thing. The way they captured the Sportatorium in Dallas, and the way they captured Dallas and just the surrounding areas, you felt it was like in Dallas. And the Sportatorium, the vibe of it, how it looked like from outside, it looked exactly like the images I've seen. So to be able to experience that, to be able to see how they captured the Sportatorium back then, I appreciated that so much. So I just wanted to add that to this. If you were someone that never got to go to a Sportatorium, you were able to kind of live in that universe for a second to see how it was back in the day. Anyway, back to the review. They did a good job. It just, I think, the build. He didn't look like Carrie. You get me? Like Carrie was, like he was built, man. And I think the Carrie in this film, he was built, but he wasn't like Carrie Von Erich built. And there was an aspect of his character where he had an accident, right? And they kind of just cut away from it, and then they bring you into the next day and kind of show you the aftermath. Again, there's certain aspects in the movie where I wish they kind of delved into like the actual happenings of what happened to some of the brothers, when they went through their events in their life, and they kind of just skimmed around it a bit. They gave you little glimpses like of David throwing up in a toilet and Carrie, getting on a motorcycle, but they wouldn't give you any insight into what happened afterwards. And so I would have liked for them to have not in a better term. I could have found a better term to say, but like to play with the story to kind of get us more emotionally involved. However, I was very much emotionally involved. We get to Mike. I thought Mike was a good cast. I just felt he was tall as hell in comparison to the real Mike. But again, I had to suspend my disbelief or suspend my reality, whatever, right? Suspend anything. I suspended everything going to this movie, and I just accepted everything. But there was certain things that you could point out that they could have done a little bit better, or things if you were historian that like, oh, what up, this don't make sense. But there was wrestling in here. You got to see Bruiser Brody in this film. You got to see Gino in this film. I'm pretty sure I saw MJF somewhere in there wearing a wig. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of criticism about the Ric Flair character. It is what it is. Harley Race. I thought Harley Race was a pretty good cast. He did a great job with his situation. And I think a lot of people are going to keep coming back to that Ric Flair one. I don't care, man. I thought the Ric Flair, I think it's going to be real difficult to capture Ric Flair in any film. And I think the guy that was in there, I thought he did a decent job portraying his own version of Ric Flair, right? I mean, he looked like a young Ric Flair. Did he talk like a young Ric Flair? Absolutely not. But he was very braggadocious, and he was styling and profiling, right? But then we get to towards the end of the film. Again, this is a real good film. It breaks down kind of their trajectory and how they go about their life, and it was amazing, man. Yeah. But the one part in this film that got me was towards the end, where Kevin Von Erich is looking at his kids playing football and kind of reverts to an earlier scene where he was playing football with his brothers, and the emotion in that one scene, it got me in my feels, right? And obviously it's difficult for me to get in my feels, but that one scene right there, that did it for me. And I was amazed by Zac Efron's performance in this movie, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for being able to capture such a story that we have here in Dallas that a lot of people hold true to them. The Von Erichs mean a lot to a lot of people, and they still do to this day. And overall, I think the film is going to age well. I think the film is going to do well, hopefully. And I think for a lot of wrestling fans, you're going to go in there and be able to appreciate this film. And then you can always go back and look at their history and understand the tragedies that this family went through and be able to appreciate a lot of this film. There's also another scene with all the brothers, right, in a particular lake. And that was a nice touch to the film too. So I think they did a great job with the film. I cannot lie. I actually want to go back and watch it. So again, I'm not a movie reviewer. I talk about Dallas Mavericks and basketball here, but I'm also a wrestling fan, and I just felt I needed to talk about this movie and just kind of share my opinion as fast as I could. Anyway, guys, been your boy TGK. Sound off in the comments. Let me know what you think. Tell me how you felt about the movie. I'll be right there commenting with you. Anyway, catch y'all on the next one.